Shanna Shanna.
Tjena.
I'm here with JW, my good buddy here from FNATIC, and we're going to do a reflections interview. And I'm sure when this comes out, it'll be one of the first of 2015. So the place I want to start with you, JW, is actually quite a prickly area because even though I know you were playing in 1.6, it wasn't like at any sort of high level. Like I wasn't aware of who you were. Like I used to follow the big tournaments, you know. And so the first place I heard of you was actually early on in CSGO because famously NIP from the very first day one, they were the team beating everyone. And then obviously there was this team you were in which online was able to beat NIP. And famously that team for that match and matches against ESC, the Polish guys who are in Virtus Pro now, there was accusations of like, oh, some people cheat in this team. And we know later on the Zelos guy got like a ban or whatever. But I remember something that people still bring up to this day is there was a video where you're playing on Mill and they show you hitting all these AWP shots, and the claim is like, oh, he has no smoke, like he's shooting through smoke here, or he was using a wall hack because he set this shot up and like shot just as soon as the guy came out. Like I remember I talked to you not that long ago, and you had like she had a pretty good reason as to what you think went on with this video. So for someone who's linked to that video today, that really old one, and they see it and they don't know any of the context, what's your story on what happened in that video, do you think?
I mean, first of all, like I don't think that the video is too good, to be honest, because back then you could like when you go forward in a demo, you will like see smokes that is actually not there.
When you fast forward through it.
Yeah, exactly. So when the guy who made the video, I don't think he realized that on a lot of clips there isn't really a smoke in the actual round. It's from like rounds before, and he has just been going fast forward. So I mean, sure, I did some crazy shots, and it was in like that match pretty much that I knew my potential, or how to say, like I got to know what I can do. So I mean, I played a great game as well, but the smokes shouldn't really be there because they are not. So it looks a bit worse than it actually is.
In the lifespan of a pro player in CS, I actually am not that shocked when young players start out and they're really good online and they're not that good offline, or it takes them a while to get into a good team, and then even when they go to LANs, it takes a while to be as good as they are online, because that's actually like the normal lifespan of a player. You know, you have to get used to the LAN environment and then the pressure, obviously, of competing there. Early on in CSGO, because you didn't really have much history of being like a good LAN player in 1.6, you haven't been in any top teams. Were you a bit of an online star at the time? Like in the early days, were you as good as you are now online, but you couldn't do it online? What was the situation before like the good Epsilon teams came around?
Yeah, I mean, I have never really gotten the chance to play at LAN pretty much, so it's like it was always that thing you wanted to do, but you never got to do it. So in the beginning, of course, you were pretty nervous and all that, but it's, yeah, I don't know, it just came pretty natural, I would say. I think I adapted pretty quick to like LAN games and so on. I think I have never really had that much of a problem playing on LAN because I always keep my game style up and I always play like I always do. So I think I wouldn't say it's luck, but I mean, it didn't affect me that much. Going into the LAN environment, I would say.
Back then, give me a taste, like for the first sort of like 5 or 6 months of CSGO, do you think that other players thought you cheated in the community? Do you think like for example, did the other top pros in Sweden, do you think they just thought like either he cheats or he's an online player, or you know, like they weren't really, they didn't give you recognition as a good player, do you think?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the case. Like, I mean, the Golden 5 guys, they said I was cheating, and I'm pretty sure the NIP guys said so as well. I mean, it was only the guys under NIP, or how to say, like they didn't think I was cheating. There were some Swedish players like Pronax and them that thought I was using this interp thing.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that was not the case either. So I mean, everybody had their thoughts, but I just kept playing. So
around the time that Epsilon got good, we remember this famous run to those 2 tournaments, the Swedish Championship and Dreamhack Summer Final, was where you made the 2 finals and you got to play NIP. You even beat NIP on a map. everyone remembers back then, okay, that now the team was like legitimate. Now people were interested in this team, and obviously at the time you were considered like a star of the team. Around this time, okay, if you hadn't been in that Epsilon team, do you think you ever would have been able to get into teams like NIP or whatever other good Swedish teams had come on? What if LGB had come along later? Would you have actually been able to get into them? Because I get the sense when I look at the pro community that even players who know that you're good, like they must know that you're a good player, I get the feeling like your style irritates them, and so they want to like deny it. It's like they have to begrudgingly say you're good. They want to be like, nah, he's just lucky, or he's just the most random guy, whatever, you know. It's still, you still kill them and you still win the round. So do you think it would have been harder to get into top teams if you hadn't been sort of with players you were friendly with?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, but I mean, in 1.6 it was like, for new players or players that became good, it was like impossible to get into the top tier of the scene, because it was so closed, if you get what I mean. And I think it wasn't really the case in the beginning of CSGO. I think it's starting to be a bit like that in CSGO as well now. Like the scene is becoming a bit, like the top scene is becoming a bit more closed, or how to say. But I mean, it's really hard to say. I just made my own team because I know I like to play with players I feel comfortable with, you know. But yeah, it's really hard to say. I don't think I would play in an IP, obviously, but I could have been picked up by like LGB, for example.
Okay, that's the sort of team, maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the interesting stories I thought about the end of 2013 was that when you guys actually got pronax, people forget this, I remember. When you guys won Dreamhack Winter, the story that people always seem to forget is that you guys had only added pronax something like, I think it was like a week and a half before, or like 9 days, some crazy figure where you added him, then you went to the Chinese event, the beat it, and then you lost to VeryGames, and then you came to Dreamhack Winter straight away. And so normally, under normal circumstances, you know, if you add a player, like maybe you can add Mekalele 2 weeks before or whatever, but normally you wouldn't add an in-game leader and expect the team to do well, because that's going to be such an overhaul of things. And when I did my interviews with all you players and did with Pronax, where I wrote the article about your win at Dreamhack Winter, he made it sound actually like he kind of knew that he didn't have much time, so he didn't implement like the most intense tactical structure ever. He just kind of picked like a few things on each map and a couple of things you could do here, and maybe he switched one guy's position around. Like, what actually was the storyline of that sort of thing? Like, when you added pronax, like what do you think actually changed in the run up to Dreamhack Winter? Was it much? Did you just put a couple of things in? What was it like?
I mean, back then I would also say that like he didn't bring in any super special stuff, but now that I have been playing with him for like a year, I know that it's not even his style to have like super like hard stuff
sort of stuff, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, he just did his calling of style, and it fits us perfectly, I would say. I mean, he started to use the players in a way like we haven't been used before, or yeah, he knew where to put players, and I would say that was the biggest difference. Like Flasha got to be the last guy, you know, lurking around and like playing sort of a get right role, which he had never really been doing that much before. So, and I got more into the entry fragger role. So I think he has put the right people on the right place, I would say.
So in terms of you, was that actually something you yourself like had wanted to do? Did he just suggest it, like try this out? What was it like in that? Like, did you want to play the type of role that you play now? Did you know it existed?
Not really. I mean, I have always been getting a lot of entry frags, even though it's not really. It wasn't really my role. So I mean, he said more like, you have always been very good at getting these early picks and do this, because he had been playing against me a lot. So it was just, I think I just took the role more serious, and yeah. But I think I made my own kind of style pretty much, and I didn't really play like anyone else, I would say.
When you think of that Dreamhack Winter tournament, because of the way all the tournaments before it had gone, it's like NIP was still really, really good, and then VeryGames had been winning all the other tournaments except ESWC, but everything else they'd been winning. And everyone really did think that that semi-final of them playing was like, whoever wins this must win the tournament, you know. It was kind of like when you played LDLC this time around, but even more so, because actually the teams on the other side, people thought, well, there's no way Complexity could beat NIP, and, you know, there's no way VeryGames would lose to Fnatic. You know, like, it seemed like those were the two who must be the best. Were people exaggerating that? Was the gap closer between the Fnatics and the other teams and NIP and VeryGames? Was it truly like you kind of had a sense of that as well? Like, oh, whoever wins that probably is going to be the hardest team, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of rooting for NIP to win because we have always had a way easier time to play NIP than VeryGames. As you probably know, like now on ECA, we beat Titan with IREC. That was my first LAN victory against Existence, and yeah, so we have always had problems against them. So I mean, it was pretty much like that. The winner of that matchup should have won the event, but yeah, I think they felt it too much as well, so they didn't go all in the final.
What's difficult about playing an Existence team then? Because it's funny you would mention that match, because that match obviously they had a guy who's their manager was the fifth guy. And in theory they should be weak now, you know, but actually they did pretty well against you guys still. They won a map, the last map was close. What's different about playing an Existence team, do you think?
I don't know really. I mean, I have talked a bit to him about it, but in my opinion it feels like he knows like every step we take, like more than we do it. But when I talk to him about it, he just says that we are playing the exactly same play style, and that's why it's so hard for us or something like that. I don't know, but I think it feels like he knows more about what we are doing than we actually do ourselves, so that's why it's so hard. But on ECA, we were pretty tired of Counter-Strike, so sure, they were playing amazing, like KRiMZ had done amazing games. It was pretty tough to play, but we didn't play up to our standards as well, I would say.
Okay, so then in that case, let's do the other side of that then. At this point in time, the Dreamhack Winter era, NIP was still considered one of the greatest teams. Obviously, earlier in the year, they used to be unbeatable, you know. No one could even get a map off them. Like, they used to be so sick. And everyone thought, like, they play the game the perfect way. They have the best players. You know, it seemed like everything was going for them. What was playing that NIP like? Because you played them in the summer, obviously, with the Epsilon teams. You won a map off them there. You beat them in this final here. Like, was there something? Was it easier for your team to play NIP than the other teams? What was that NIP actually like to play against? Do you think? What was the feeling like if you played them all? What were they like as a team when you were in the server with them?
I mean, in the beginning, especially, it was always a good feeling to play NIP because you had never something to lose, pretty much. It was always them having something to lose. You could only win, even if you get 10 rounds or something. That was super good back then. So like, you could only win, or how to say. So that's, I think it's about the pressure thing. I mean, nobody have ever had pressure against NIP, I think, because they are the #1 team. They are supposed to win. They are supposed to beat you and all that. So I think it's pretty much a pressure thing. And then lately, people don't even play with pressure against anyone anymore, I guess. So I mean, in the beginning, it was all about pressure, I would say.
How did it? Obviously, that era they were still not quite in their peak, because their peak was when they were winning everything, but they were still, their prime was still there. You know, they were still a very good team. If you actually played against an IP, what were the difficulties? Like, were they particularly good on T sides? Like everyone always remembers, Freeburg was like the great entry fragger. Get Right was the great clutcher. What were the things that stood out to you as like, this is different from other teams, or this is the main difficulty of if you're trying to play NIP and beat them, this is what you have to do? What do you think?
I mean, it was very weird actually, because it felt like you always knew what they were going to do and all that, but somehow they always managed to win the rounds. And yeah, after a while you got used to like, yeah, Get Right will come behind us, and after a while that got pretty simple to read. But even though you know that, he always somehow get like 3 kills and stuff, even if you like call it out in TeamSpeak, like he will come behind us, like that's 100% and all that, but still he managed to get like 3 people from behind. It's I don't know how really, but I think they had everything going for themselves, like every duel, all that. They had just everything going for themselves, I would say, during that time. So even though you knew they will execute there, even though you had entries, they somehow win the round. So I would say they just had everything going for themselves.
This might sound like kind of an unusual question here, like a metaphysical question. Do you believe in fate? Do you think some things just are meant to happen, like there's destiny, like something was just meant to happen that way? Do you believe in it?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, you just look at Dreamhack Winter, for example. It shouldn't have happened, but somehow it happened for us.
I mean, I'm thinking of like when Flasher had that 2v4 win on Dust 2 when it was 14-14, and then Schneider winning that 1v1 versus Get Right, where like he actually was on Get Right's screen and Get Right magically didn't see him, you know, like just crazy stuff to happen, you know, like you couldn't imagine these things would happen.
No, I think that maybe was the first match that NIP players actually felt pressure as well. I mean, they have probably not been feeling any pressure before, so. And this was the first major, they were supposed to win it and all that, so I think it could be one of the first time that they actually feel pressure, at least in CSGO, of course.
Okay. So here's the thing. I don't like to blow my own trumpet and sound like I told you guys, but I did say after Dreamhack Winter, I gave you all these props because I said, listen, what's amazing about FNATIC winning Dreamhack Winter is that, like you're saying there, on paper, they shouldn't win. Like, actually, VeryGames or NIP should win, or when they get to the final, they probably should lose in 2 maps, like maybe Dust 2 and Inferno, they just lose and NIP wins, whatever. But somehow they won. So I give you props, like, wow, what an incredible victory. But I did say at the time, like, that doesn't make them the best team, Like, they're not going to now, like, dominate CS, and it's going to be hard to win tournaments in an era, because obviously, aside from VeryGames and NIP, we then got Virtus.pro came along next year. Like, there was all these very good teams that were, like, above your team. We saw that your team gradually went downhill. It's like after that you went down to sort of like 3rd, and then you went like top 8, and then it's like you gradually dropped off. And then by Dreamhack Summer, where you didn't get out of the groups, it's like the story kind of made sense. Like the team was unraveling a bit, and it hadn't been able to ever get to the level of what happened at Dreamhack again. If you look back now, and it's months and months later, so you have like perspective on what happened. I've heard just what birds tell me is that like certain players either were motivated, or maybe that thing happens where a lineup's been together a long time, and if you lose, eventually it's like there's nothing else you can change except you have to change a play. You feel like you tried everything. You tried changing people's positions or playing different maps instead, and eventually you just run out of idea. What do you think what happened to FNATIC basically? How did you go from Dreamhack Winter champions to can't get out of the group at Dreamhack Summer?
Yeah, I mean, it was always like that. We were so good friends. Let's say in this team now, we're also very good friends, but we can play serious when we have to. And that was the problem in our old team with Schneider and Devilwalk. Like, we were so good friends that we couldn't even play serious when we actually had to, like in practice and stuff. We played like maybe more than every other team out there. We practiced like 6 hours at least, like 7 hours a day, a night, every day, pretty much. And we just wasted all the time and all the hours. Like we just play unserious and stuff like that. So I think that was the thing. But also then we could have been getting better and all that. But when we lost to LGB at Katowice, I would say that's when the team pretty much died, because that loss was, it was a tough loss for all of us, and against a Swedish team that we should have beaten and all that. It was like after that loss we couldn't get back. I think we really tried and all that, but I think the team died at Katowice.
So actually the LGB team you mentioned here, what's funny is the way their story went as a team. Like when they'd shown they were good at Dreamhack Winter. Then at Katowice, obviously they make the semis and they've managed to beat Virtus.pro and in Mirage. And then after that they had another game at Copenhagen Games against Virtus.pro. So they showed they were like a good team, and people thought, oh, maybe if they stick together they could become like a top team, or maybe they'll get a big sponsor. And that didn't happen actually. The team like gradually broke apart. And so if they'd have all just retired then, it'd be like a what if story. Like what if they'd have stuck together? But obviously since then, we've seen what happened actually. Like 2 of them came into your team, everything went really awesome, like it got better and better. But actually in some ways that makes me think even more like what if? Like what if LGB had, let's imagine instead of having lost like LGB and then going to Team Global and all the stuff that happened there, if they had have been picked up by a big sponsor, let's say SK Gaming or someone invested big time and they were like, we've got to have this team, and they're just going to stay as a team for the rest of the year, what was the actual level like, do you think, as a team? Like, had they peaked early, would they have been not as good later on when people figured them out or something? What did you think of them as a overall team? The one with Dennis and olofm, KRiMZ, you know, those guys.
I mean, I think maybe later they would have gotten worse because they didn't have a true in-game leader. But yeah, I don't know how much I can say, but you probably knew that a big sponsor was already done. Everything was pretty much sealed. When they became Team Global, and then I don't know, something happened, and yeah, people started to leave the team and stuff like that. I don't really know, but I mean, they could have been good. I think a lot of people take them as you said about me, like they were playing. Everybody were playing like me, pretty much. Like they were running around like without heads, pretty much. They were just running around.
Free-for-all style.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what made them so good, because it was pretty hard to counter, and they had very much skill, I would say. I think people don't really understand how much skill there actually was in that team. I think they played Counter-Strike like we played now, a bit. But yeah, in the long run, it's hard to say if a team would survive without a true in-game leader. It's the same there, like in our team. We didn't have a true in-game leader there for a while, so before we got pronax, that is. So I mean, it's hard to say, but I think they could have been a very good team, of course.
So this question I'm going to ask now, I'm just going to warn everyone. Like, people who are fanboys might get mad about this question, but I think it's an interesting question, so I really want to know. So you remember the famous example people used to say was whenever the topic of like should Fiflaren be removed from NIP came up, you know, the most famous example was always, well, sure, you could remove Fiflaren, and then they always used to say, or you could put olofm in, because he was always like the main candidate people put forward, you know, because he was really skilled player, could AWP as well. People always would say, yeah, you could remove Fiflaren and put olofm in, but that wouldn't make them better, you know, they'd probably be worse, like they wouldn't have a support player and all this sort of thing, you know. Well, obviously we've seen now, olofm's a really fantastic player when he's playing in your team. He's one of the best in the world, and crucially, they did put in just a star AWP type player in Makaleli, who I think is worse than olofm. So I'd rather have olofm for him. So here's the dangerous question, JW. Obviously, they can't get olofm now. He's in FNATIC. It's too late. But during that middle period in summer, when their results were starting to go badly, olofm was just sat there. He was doing nothing. Team Global was going nowhere. They really could have actually done the exact move that people were always making fun of. You know, if NIP had taken olofm in as the fifth player, would it have worked? Could he have fit their style of team? What's your sense?
Yeah, I really think that would made them pretty much unstoppable again. But I mean, as you say, it's super hard to say or no. But I really think that Olof would fit in that team perfectly. He fits into. I think pronax and exist is pretty close to each other when it comes to calling. So I think Olof would be a perfect fit in that team, and yeah, I mean, I'm happy that they didn't, because now I got him. So
yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that team with all of them could be unstoppable again.
When you guys got Olof and you got KRiMZ, I think it was like late June or something, I think was when it was announced. When this move was actually announced, because like I mentioned that story before, when it said like olofm joins FNATIC, everyone was like, well, no, that makes perfect sense, like that makes a lot of sense. But then they were like, and KRiMZ joins, and everyone was sort of like, what? Like, where was no one else available? Like, on paper, before we know what we know now, pretend we don't know what we know now, JW. If I look at LGB and I want like some star players or something, in an ideal world, you'd want like, maybe you want Dennis or you want Twist, or, you know, I know like Dennis was maybe retired or whatever, but were these really the first two options? Like, how did you know to pick up KRiMZ? Whose idea was that?
So at first it was like Olof was the obvious choice, and then it was pretty split. I mean, me and Flasha wanted to play with Sentries, you know, that Norwegian guy.
The Norwegian guy used to be in Epsilon with you, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we wanted him, but
why did you want him?
because he's a very dedicated player and he's a very talented player, I would say.
Okay.
And when we played with him, we had like zero problems. He did always turn up to practice. He like played deathmatch all the time because he got the chance to play with a good team and stuff like that. So we thought that he deserved the chance now. But Karn, for example, don't want a team with split nationalities anymore, since when they split Swedish and Denmark,
Danish, yeah.
I think. Yeah, exactly. Before, he didn't think that was that good, I think, or something. And also pronax didn't really want to play with a Norwegian as well. And then Olof said that KRiMZ is the best teammate he have ever had. And what I heard from like pronax that knows Olof pretty good is that Olof doesn't say that about a player if he doesn't really mean it. So we just took KRiMZ because we trusted in Olof and his words, I guess. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think it was me and Flasha wanted Sentries and the others wanted KRiMZ pretty much. So
once something happens and it goes really well, people always want to like rewrite history. So for example, I know he wouldn't actually do this, but let's say pronax was like a really egotistical player. He could just be like, I always knew KRiMZ would be that good, and like that was my plan from day one. You know, like I'd get him and put him in those positions, and I tell him like, listen, this is going to work for you, just trust me. And then when he became the best, you'd be like, yeah, see, it was my plan all along. But come on, did FNATIC themselves, did you really even know what style he was going to play or how his level would be, etc. when you put him in those positions? Because when I look at him playing in that team FNATIC and I look at the old team in LGB, it's like a different player.
Yeah, I mean, if we talk about players, it was obvious that Olof would replace Schneider, in my opinion. And then we had a replacement for Devilwalk. That was KRiMZ, we say. So, I mean, in the beginning it was like he will play the supportive role and he will play the support role and all that. But, yeah, I mean, what's the word? I don't find the word. Like, he got better so quick.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he has got to do a bit more stuff than just the support role. I mean, he is still the support player in our team, I think.
Yeah,
I would say that.
The roles he plays, the things he does.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, when we talked about players like that, I think Olof was replacing Schneider and KRiMZ was replacing Devilwalk. And people used to say like it was a bad choice or whatever, and that Schneider is way better than KRiMZ and all that, but I don't think you can really say like that because KRiMZ in the first place didn't even replace Schneider. So, I mean, yeah, it's hard to say.
Makes sense. Okay, so in the early days of this FNATIC lineup, even though you had this same lineup, actually your team was like a little bit underwhelming, I think, because the problem was online you were just wrecking everyone. You were like going some ridiculous stats. Like I remember there was one stat where you were like 10-1 on cash or like 15-1 on infinite, whatever it was. The stats were insane. You know, online it was like you were unbeatable, and then at LANs you were still a top team. You were clearly like a top 4, top 3 team, but you weren't winning the big LANs. You know, like Gfinity, you lost to Titan, ESL One Cologne, obviously you lost to NIP. Was there something about the initial team? Why did it work so well online but didn't transition offline? Because obviously later you became what you were online. You know, you became beating everyone. So was there something that had to be figured out still, do you think?
I think it was like just get used to each other and getting more comfortable with each other. Like people, when they play online, they just do their own thing, you know. And then on LAN, I don't know, I think I would say the whole team pretty much didn't play like we could. Dreamhack Stockholm, for example, like nobody played like they should do. And I think that was a good lesson for all of us, because we realized that we shouldn't care so much. We should just play like online, because it shouldn't it is a LAN shouldn't change how we play. We should just keep our games done and all that. So I think the Dreamhack Stockholm loss was a very good lesson for us. But yeah, I think it was mostly because we weren't really used to each other and all that. It was a new team, but yeah, we saw the potential online, of course, so that's why we didn't really give up or anything like that. We knew that we could get this level on LAN as well.
If fate or destiny did exist, then a great example of it would have to be that ESL One Cologne final. Because if you think about it, like, you guys won a major where you were like the underdog and NIP was supposed to win and they were the better team, and even on the first few maps, like, they're still doing really well. Like, they only narrowly lose the first map, then they smash the second map, then the third map everyone's like, oh, they're the favourites to win. Like, everything looked at ESL One Cologne like the other way around. Like, NIP are playing fucking terribly. Somehow they're winning these miracle matches. They get to the final, they're playing you guys. You know, they have to win a bullshit cobblestone as they did every single time there. The decider is Inferno, which is like FNATIC's best map. Like, you were supposed to win this final, right? If we replay that final like 10 times, FNATIC wins a whole bunch of those, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we choked pretty much. To begin with, we should have won cobblestone, in my opinion. And then Inferno, I don't know. Sure, we were a very good team on it, but I don't think we were as good on it back then as we are now. But yeah, I mean, to begin with, we should have won cobblestone. But I just think that we choked. We knew that we could win and like all that. We didn't really do that at Dreamhack Winter with the whole team. We didn't really feel like we should win and stuff like that. But now we actually felt like we can actually get this title, and this is our title, like, you know. So I think we pretty much choked in the ESL One final. But yeah, I mean, in my opinion, NIP also deserves it in a way that they have always came to the final and all that. So even though it would have been awesome if I won, I'm happy that they actually got the title.
When I saw NIP win against Cloud9 in that tournament, where they won that cobblestone as the decider, and it was like I can't really look at that game and be like, I even know that NIP knew what they were doing. It looked like a really messy game, and then things were just crazy on every single one of the remaining rounds of like impossible scenarios happening. But they did win cobblestone in all three playoff series, even against you, against LDLC. Did they actually have something at that tournament? Did they have like a unique trick or something they'd figured out about the map other people hadn't? Was there anything that gave them an edge, do you think?
Nah, I think, if I remember correct, they played cobblestone versus Epsilon in the group stage.
Yeah, they got beat.
And that was maybe one of the first time that they actually touched the map.
Ah, okay.
So I think they learned a few things there. And then versus Cloud9, they learned a few more things, you know. And then versus LDLC, they were a bit better, but they still learned a few things. And then against us, they pretty much knew the map, I guess. And yeah, I think they learned the map during the tournament, pretty much. I don't think they put that much time into it at all, to be honest.
So I want to ask you about one of my own, like, just a Thorin theory, you know, what's something I came up with that I think it's some basis to it though, but maybe I'm wrong, and if I'm wrong, just tell me straight up. So when this FNATIC lineup was formed initially, as weird as it sounds, even though you were placing top 4, top 2, all these events, it actually is a problem if the team is godlike online, and so the expectation is that you should be able to win every tournament, you know, but then you don't win the LAN. Like, actually, I saw the same thing happen in LDLC, where they were gods online and they had the sick lineup because they hadn't won anything up till Dreamhack. It's true that could have caused problems. Like, maybe they would have panicked, you know, and removed a player or changed something about the lineup. So the question I want to ask is, during the time when your team was starting to get things together and you hadn't actually started winning LANs yet with the new lineup, that was the same era when NIP was having all their problems. They were failing every LAN, and they were, you know, like they couldn't even qualify for LANs, and everyone knew, like, unless a miracle happens, they're going to have to change players eventually. So they were going to have to change a 5th player, probably for Flaren, obviously, and they were going to have to get another player, even though FNATIC was already really good. I always wondered if the timing of when you started winning events, if you hadn't started winning at like Face It and then won ESW, and got a really strong streak going where there was no reason any player would ever leave because you were the favourites to win Dreamhack. If that hadn't have happened in that way, or Nip had changed the player a bit earlier, do you think there's even a chance that maybe a FNATIC player would have been the 5th player in Nip? Was it even a possibility, do you think?
It's very hard to say. I think there is a possibility. I mean, I wouldn't... Of course, I would get like a bit sad if someone in my team left for NIP, but in the end, I mean, I think it's ever since the beginning. I think every Swedish player have wanted to play in NIP. Like they have been such an amazing team and have had such great runs. So I think like ever since the beginning, people have wanted to play in NIP. I don't know if that's the case now, but. Yeah, I think there could have been a possibility, but it's hard to say, really.
Okay, so you say that. You say, like, maybe another player would have joined, and, like, a lot of players wanted to... Well, what about JW? What if they'd said, listen, we need an AWPer. You've been annoying us every time you played us, so just fucking join our team, man. Look, your team isn't winning. Like, come join NIP, like, 6 salary. Like, we'll be the... Get right in for us. Like, listen, JW... It's like Darth Vader, like join us and we will rule the galaxy together. Like we can do this, bro. Like you would have at least considered it, right?
Yeah, of course I would have considered it. I mean, it's NIP, but also I would think about the fact that FNATIC and KRiMZ, for example, have always believed in me and have given me so many chances and all that. So I mean, I wouldn't like leave and backstab people.
Okay.
But of course I would consider it. Like I wouldn't just straight out turn down it, but I wouldn't also straight out just say yes. So I don't know.
So here's a straight up classic like Thorin way of asking a question, because obviously if someone does really well, people would say you're supposed to just focus on the good things, like, oh, you do really well now, you're a good player, like, what do you think about that? But when I saw you do, you remember this semi-final of Dreamhack Stockholm where you played against Titan and they were just like on fire completely, but you had these 2 rounds where you like completely aced them, the one on Inferno and then the one on Dust 2. And what's funny is you having these crazy rounds when your team was really doing badly and doing terribly, people would think like, wow, JW did awesome. But actually what that made me think of is that actually before then you'd never really had like super sick performances at most of the lands in your career. Like when I think back on the other ones, FNATIC kind of won Dreamhack Winter pretty much as a team. Like everyone had key moments there. You weren't like just dominating everyone like maybe a Get Right did in the past with Nip or someone. And other lands after, when you'd had problems, often you were having problems as well. That was part of the reason why the team didn't win. Like maybe you couldn't get AWP going against certain players, or you couldn't get your style to work, and you maybe for whatever reasons. Is there anything that you think changed in JW, the player? Like, how did you go from being someone who it seemed like you had some problems on LAN, especially AWPing? I noticed I almost never saw you do it. Like, you either never bought it, or if you started to lose with like Kenny S or something, you just stopped AWPing immediately. Like, did something change in you for this new FNATIC team?
Yeah, I think, like, in my whole career, pretty much, my team has always relied, I would say, too much on me. So now in this team, I don't really have that pressure anymore. Like, we have so many good players that can turn around every round. So I think that's the biggest change. And also, yeah, I don't know. I think, in my opinion, that I got way more consistent now with the player changes. I don't really know why, but yeah, I think that's the case. But yeah, I mean, I think it's mostly the pressure, because my old team always relied on me too much, I would say.
So in one of those rounds, I want to ask you a specific question, because everyone remembers that insane Inferno round where you're going into the A bomb site, and it eventually winds up in this scenario where you're 1v1 and you actually have an AWP. And you have, here's what people don't know about that round, JW. People think that you were killing everyone and you just decided, like, I'll just kill the last guy. And you no-scope him through the box, or you quick-scope him through the box. But what people don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is you had 1 fucking bullet left in the AWP at the time. right? So that actually doesn't raise the question of like, what a great shot. It raises this question, JW. Why the fuck would you fire it as fast as possible through the box? Like, wouldn't you be totally fucked if that went even slightly wrong? Like, why did you do that? What was the thinking?
I don't know really. I mean, I think I didn't really know myself that I only had one bullet.
Okay.
I got to know that afterwards. But yeah, I mean, it was like you say, it was just meant to happen, I guess.
It was just, you just did it. You just thought, fuck it, just fire, just do it anyway.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how the round almost got lost anyway. So yeah, we should have won that round without me being in 1 versus 1.
In terms of like when you AWP, it's hard to describe your AWPing because on one hand you can be really awesome with it. Like we've seen even at some of the LAN finals like Fragment Masters, etc. You can have like, you can ace the whole team with the AWP from one position, like Mirage at the window room. That's these sorts of positions you can be awesome with the AWP. Yet at the same time, I think that like some people go too far and they try to make out like you're only an AWP player. Like they think you're like a Kenny S of FNATIC or something, and you're going to use it every single round no matter what. Whereas I don't really see JW that way. Like, how would you describe yourself as an AWP? Like, what is the category? Like, no, what is the criteria for when JW would AWP or when it makes sense to? Is it only on certain maps? Is it only when you feel like you're gonna you feel on fire? Does Pronax ever tell you like buy an AWP this round? Like, how does it work for you?
Well, first off, I have like never been an AWPer. I think I don't know how it really happened, but yeah, I have never been an AWPer like in 1.6 or early Go really. But yeah, now I have somewhat gotten into that role, and Pronax wants me to buy the AWPer pretty much every round, or at least when I can. So I think it's mostly when I feel the AWP power, or how to say, that's when I want to buy it. But now people tell me to buy it a bit more because they actually think I am good with it, and that I get a lot of map control and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I play it a lot more now than I used to. But let's say before, I would only bring it up when I actually feel it. And that's also the thing now, like when I don't feel it, like when I really don't feel it at all, I just say that, yeah, Olof, you can take the AWP now. And he's like, yeah, sure. And then if Olof really feels it, he can be like, yeah, I want to take the AWP, and we do double AWP setups and all that. But yeah, I would say that I play AWP a lot more now than I'm used to. And I don't know if it's really good or bad, but it's working right now. So
when FNATIC won their first tournament this year, you won with this lineup, when you won the Face It LAN, and then after that, obviously you were able to then win ESWC, then Fragment Master. You had this insane streak where you were looking like unbeatable, like no one could touch you. Did anything actually change between like the last loss and then winning all the lands? Was there anything figured out? Could the team always have been at that level?
Yeah, I think we didn't really change that much. It was just people playing more like they should on LAN, I would say. We got more used to each other and all that, so we started to play like we should. I mean, I think that's pretty much all. Because we didn't really change any setups, we didn't really change any strats. We just kept playing like we did online, and we kept playing like that on practice, and yeah, and we got it with us to the lands. That's the difference, I would say.
So the two maps that you really stood out on when you started to dominate were obviously Inferno, Mirage. Like these two maps, your team just looked unbeatable on CT side. I've always said, like just from watching the way the game's played out, I always thought like Inferno was the best map for your team. Did you actually feel the same way? Was Inferno the best? Did you prefer Mirage? What was the best map for FNATIC in this era, do you think?
I think Inferno was the best, but I think the second best maybe would be in Cash.
Okay. Because
we were pretty much the first team, I would say, that started to use the double AWP setup as standard CT positions. And yeah, now everyone has yeah, took that. So everybody's playing double ops now pretty much. So it's how the game works, you know. People adapt, and one team finds something and others adapt to it. So I don't think Cache is our second best map now, but I think at that time it was probably Inferno, Cache, and then Mirage at third.
So when your team won all those tournaments, I actually made this point even before the streak had finished. Like when I saw how good you guys were on Inferno, I actually said one of the reasons why this team will be able to dominate is because the map pool of what the other top teams want to play is going to be really favorable, because all the other top teams at the time, LDLC, Virtus Pro, they're all going to be willing to play Inferno. So if it's your best map, then it's awesome. You're going to be definitely getting one map at least in a series, you know. I have a strange question for you. It is clear that LDLC were really good on Inferno. Like if they played anyone else, they would look awesome and they'd be really good. But I actually know that even to this day, just from things I know in secret, JW, that I can't reveal, I know that in their minds they still think they're the best Inferno team. Like they think that that's their best, and they that's why they will play it. They think that they should be even FNATIC on it. What was your team better than LDLC on Inferno, do you think? What did you think of their Inferno?
I think it's pretty clear that we actually were a better Inferno team, because I mean we beat them on that map all the times we played them on it.
The only time you lost was the overtime one in Fragment Masters.
Yeah, exactly, and we should have won that as well. So I mean, sure, you can say that can say that about every map maybe, but I mean we should have won that. We had like 15-12 or something, and we started to play relaxed and stuff like that. But I mean, in my opinion, we were the better Inferno team. They might be better than us now, I don't know. But I think, I mean, it's like Cloud9, for example. I don't know why they always play Inferno in like all their LAN matches, but they think that's like their best map or something, so that's why they play it. So I mean, spectators and viewers and people around will not feel the same way as the team, or the other way around, I guess. So, I mean, I'm not saying Cloud9 is like a bad Inferno team or something, but yeah, I've seen them.
It's okay, I'll say it for you. I think they're bad in 30, so it's alright, JW, don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, they have went out in groups like 2 times or so on Inferno, so I don't see why they keep picking it, but that's just my opinion.
So, when you played against LDLC in these tournaments, so you played ESWC final, then right after, it was only like a week or something, or even maybe even less, but for the Fragment Masters one, you played him in that, and that one was a best of 5 final. When you played him in these 2 finals, they'd only managed to win 1 map out of 6 that you played. So it looked pretty bad. Like, even though they were the second best team, it looked like, wow, FNATIC's always going to have their number. Did you, before the Dreamhack Winter, did you actually have a similar sense, like, wow, these guys will never beat us? Like, we always have something against them, or they seem like they got nerves get to them, or they crumble, or something about us playing them just doesn't work for them? What did you think at the time?
I mean, to begin with, I was pretty scared to play them. I don't remember if it was before Face It or if it was before ESWC. I think it was before Face It. We played them in the the quarterfinals, I think, in the Fragment Masters
online
qualify. And we lost like 2-1.
Yep.
Or maybe 2-1. Yeah, I think it was 2-1. I think in my opinion, that was also a match like we should have won, but we started to choke and we did good. We started to communicate very bad, and we didn't hit our shots and stuff like that. So I started to like get scared about them being our new Titan, you know, because it's have always been like that for us against Titan. We can't win against them. So in the beginning, I was pretty scared that would be the case, but yeah, then we went into the LAN, and I think first LAN we didn't get to play them. They lost to iBuyPower.
Yeah, first. Yeah.
And then second LAN we beat them in the final, and then in the final again. So yeah, in the beginning I was pretty scared about we not being able to beat them actually, and then later on, I think it's more mentally for them. Like they maybe feel that they won't beat us, and that's why they perform worse against us or something. But yeah.
When the pronax FNATIC first came about at the end of 2013, you got to play against, in my opinion, probably the best French lineup ever. The VeryGames that had shox in it, when shox was like a monster, you know, and he was like all those highlight rounds every game. When you remember that guy back then, and now the guy who plays in LDLC now, do you feel like he does a different role in LDLC now? What's different about him? Because it doesn't seem like, now he just seems like, if I didn't know anything about the player, I just saw him now, I'd be like, oh, he's a good player with good aim, and sometimes he has a round, but I'd never think he was a superstar, you know, whereas before he really was like up there on whatever the top level, where there's only a couple of guys can be that high up, you know. What do you think of the difference? Because you got to play both kinds of shox, you know. What do you think of him now?
Yeah, to begin with, like in that Chinese event, MSI beat it. We played them in the final, VeryGames, and out of 4 pistol rounds, I think shoxy, I think he aced 2 or 3 of them, and then he got like 3 kills on the 2 other pistol rounds. So he pretty much won VeryGames 4 pistol rounds that event, and that was the first time I actually was like, damn, this guy, he's insane. I mean, now he, as you say, he has his good games, but it feels like maybe there is too much of like other stars stealing his spot or spotlight, or I don't know, maybe he's not really comfortable with like his role or something like that. I don't know really, because I think he's playing pretty much the same way, but he's just not, I think he's just not that much in the spotlight anymore. I think that might affect him, I don't know, but I think yeah, that's my take on it, I think.
Okay. When it came into Dreamhack Winter, this is the first time I think I've ever seen it where I really thought that the best team was going to win the event for sure. Like, the only other time I can think of that was close was I thought VeryGames was going to win the Dreamhack Winter the year before, and obviously they got to the semis and they lost. But this time it looked like there's almost no reason FNATIC shouldn't win, because of the factor that you've won all the 3 events before, you're beating everyone, and crucially, the team who's the second best, who should have the best chance to beat you, were the ones that you were also dominating really hard. So it looks like surely FNATIC's going to win this Dreamhack Winter title here. Even before we get to the LDLC match, it's clear that FNATIC at this tournament wasn't really the same dominant level of the one before. I mean, you lost on Inferno to Hellraisers in that game. If we look at how Hellraisers were later in the tournament, they got smashed pretty easily by NIP. Was something off before you went to DreamHack? Like did all the cheating accusations and all that stuff surround the team, do you think it actually got to you at all? Was that even a factor in what happened at the tournament?
No, I don't really think so. I think we showed up and played a decent game or a good game, but Hellraisers, they played their A game for sure on that Mirage game. They were doing everything right and they were hitting so many shots. Simple had an amazing game, and yeah, I don't know, I was pretty sad that they didn't keep up that level of play in the playoffs, because when I played against them there, I thought they would be able to go to the final, and then I woke up and saw that they lost to NIP and pretty big. So I don't really know what happened to them, but I think they played their A game in the group stage at least. And yeah, I think we played as we usually do. It was just them having like a way better day, and yeah, as I said, they had their A game. That was pretty much it, I think. I think we played pretty good Counter-Strike still. And yeah, of course, that cheating accusations and all that wasn't really making us better, but I don't think it made us that much worse either.
So in the quarterfinal, we got the match that everyone actually hoped it'd be in the final, but it was going to be in the quarterfinal. It was going to be LDLC FNATIC again, the 3rd time, but this time, obviously, whoever loses has to go out before the top 4, lose a lot of money, can't win Dreamhack Winter title. This is the one that like everyone would say really matters, like the most important one. In this game, it seemed like LDLC were the ones who were different. Like all those other times you'd played them, they did kind of crumble sometimes, or they'd have like for example, Dust 2, they thought they were going to be good on in Fragbite Masters final, and then they just got spanked on it completely. Well, this time, looked like this time they looked like they were actually going to beat you this time. Like they won the first map. Okay, you won the second map pretty well. Third map, the first half. After the first half, they were probably going to win this game. If history changes and nothing is done by Fnatic and you just play normally, they were probably going to beat you like straight up for the first. Was there something different about LDLC in this match?
I don't know. I mean, to begin with, our Dust 2 at least have always been so on and off. Like, we could have a very, very good Dust 2, but we can also have like the worst Dust 2 out of all teams. So I don't know. I don't really remember how the banning phase was really, but I think I wanted to play them on Nuke, I think. And I don't know if they banned it or if we did. But yeah, I don't know really. They played good Counter-Strike, of course. We maybe did as well, but I don't know. Dust 2 is a very hard map when you start losing and you don't like get into the game. So we started to make a comeback as CT, I think, but it just wasn't enough. And yeah, I don't know. They maybe got rid of all like ghosts in their heads or something like that.
Okay, but then here's the thing. They were winning, you know, it was 12-3 on overpass. But then obviously you guys did this boost to CT. Now we have to ask you some questions about this boost. So the first question I want to ask is like this. Did you really have that boost planned just for Dreamhack Winter? Like if you did figure it out 2 months before, like the story goes, and you asked this guy to take the video down, whatever people say, if you had the boost in mind for 2 months, was it always like a, you know, like that thing where you have like a red box that says smash in case of emergency, and it's like whatever, there's like a extinguisher in there in case a fire happens? Would you have used it at another time? Like for example, say in Fragbite you'd have played overpass and you'd have been losing, would you have pulled it out then? Were you really saving it only for Dreamhack Winter?
No, we were only saving it for the major, and like, to be fair, we would have used it even if we were up, I think. Okay. I don't think it really matters. We were just saving that strat for Dreamhack Winter, not for like if we're losing. So I mean, we hadn't ever used it before, like in a practice or anything, so we didn't know really how good it was. I mean, sure, people might say that we should have understand that and blah blah, but like we really didn't, because we have seen, for example, LDLC's boost, which actually is not legal either, but we have seen that one, and we simply just thought that we were more innovative and had like a better boost than them. That was like all the things to it. We really didn't think or know that it was that game breaking. So one of the complicated topics about this is the aspect of pixel walking. And the problem I get the sense of is that I think a lot of fans, especially because there's so many new fans in CSGO, didn't know what pixel walking was until this map happened. And so when they heard it along these lines, like, oh, this thing called pixel walking exists, every pro knows it's illegal, it's always been in the rules, which obviously we found out it wasn't, but in the past it's been in the rules, so everyone must know, and therefore it carried an implication that if you did something that involved pixel walking, you must be like a cheater and you must know that you're cheating. Whereas it's my understanding that one of the reasons why pixel walking isn't in the rules anymore is because there are actually legitimate boosts that you're allowed to do. There's even one on this same map, Overpass, that involve pixel walking, but it's just accepted that you're allowed to do it. Is this accurate? Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of pixel walking on CSGO. I would say, like, for example, Inferno. You remember this bomb spot on A, the bomb boxes? You can jump up there and peek into house. That is pixel walking as well. So I mean, there is a lot of pixel walking in CSGO, and I think everybody uses it. So it have never really been illegal in that way. And as the admins told us, it wasn't pixel walking or anything that made the boost illegal, because for some reason there were some angles in the game, for example balloons on overpass or something, that you could actually see the top of the head of the player that was boosted, but you couldn't actually shoot him or something like that.
Okay, he's immortal is the thing. The immortal
exactly. He's immortal or something from some angles. And that was also the case with LDLC's boost. There were some angles that you couldn't kill them from, so their boost was immortal as well. So that's all they said to us, that it wasn't replayed because it was pixel boost or something like that, because pixel boosting is okay, as it seems. It's a lot of pixel boosting on a lot of maps right now, so yeah.
So was it actually the case that did you know that this immortal bug existed in any sense? Had you ever checked that, and did you know it existed at all?
No, we didn't even know that. Some guys, or some print screens was like you could see to T-spawn, I think, through some crack or something.
Okay.
Like that. That was nothing we knew either. Like if you check the demo, the people boosted is never ever checking there. So I mean, we didn't know anything about the boost pretty much, more than that we could do it. We have just done it on our own server and never tried it against an opponent or anything. So yeah.
Did you know you could win as many rounds? Like, did you think like they can figure it out, or they'll, maybe 4 rounds in they'll figure out and they'll get an AWP and they'll just kill that guy? Or was it going to really win you the whole game like it obviously did?
No, I don't think that it should have. I mean, if I got pretty surprised actually that they never got to understand how to kill him. I mean, they could just buy an AWP and kill him from T-spawn basically. So I mean, the boost, sure, it is overpowered and game breaking, but I mean, they could, if they found out where he was standing, they could just buy an AWP and kill him from T-spawn. So I mean, I guess that was why we didn't thought it was that game breaking when we found it, because we thought like, yeah, it might work 2 weapon rounds, but then he could be killed from the whole map. So yeah, I don't know.
So one of the most famous Swedish teams, not just for being famous, but for whining, is NIP. Okay, these guys, not only are they the best of all time in CSGO, but they're the best at complaining. Okay, I've noticed anytime something goes wrong in a match, they always like have the perfect like tweet to say, like, great game by the opponent, cause we let ourselves down. Like they always have that angle that they go out with. So some of the NIP players were the one, seemed like they were upset that this boost happened. Okay, that like they thought like LDLC got cheated, and I think it might even have been an NIP player. There was a couple of teams who tried to suggest to me that like, oh, they knew about this boost, but they just didn't do it because like they knew it would be morally wrong, or something like that. I actually at the time thought like bullshit. Like, do you think anyone else actually knew, who's a pro team, about this boost? And secondly, if NIP knew this boost, do you think they would do it in a pro game? Just your own opinion. What would your sense be?
I think that no other team knew about this boost. Maybe one team, but they never got to play. Oh yeah, I know actually for a fact that Cloud9 knew about the boost.
Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I heard that they would have used it.
I think they said they would have if they'd have been on Overpass.
Yeah, but they didn't get to play Overpass, because I know that Nothing got this boost in his like inbox on his fan page or something. I think he showed us that. So somebody showed him like print screens on the boost and all that. And so then you also could say like, why didn't they report it in? Because this guy, I think, yeah, he showed them everything about the boost and how you do it and all that. So I mean, why didn't they report it into Valve? Because according to people, it's obvious that we should have done so. But yeah, to the question, I think they might have used the boost. I don't know. I think it is super hard to know as a player if the boost is legit or not. Like, especially when it's that good, so you can't use it in practice and actually see how it works in a game. But yeah, I mean, I think if another team would have used it, I think it wouldn't have gotten so big as it did now. I'm not sure. I mean, a bit of the reason why it got so big, of course, is because we used it like every round. But that is also because they never found out how to kill him, and we didn't really understand that we were doing something wrong. I think not even the casters understood that until we like got off the game and checked Twitter and all that. Like, we actually realized how it looked. So
when people say report it, okay, this is what's confusing me, because what I know about Valve and their international interaction with the pro players is like you can sometimes sort of like email them, or maybe one or two pro players are lucky and they have like a guy on Steam or Skype or something, but in general it's not such an open line of communication. You know, you can send them an email and maybe that ever gets a reply, maybe it never has any effect. If you'd have emailed Valve a month before Dreamhack and your email's like, "Dear Gabe N, I have a boost that is fucking broken," do you think they would have changed the map and fixed it before Dreamhack Winter? Just an honest opinion. What do you think?
I don't really think so, because sure, we can show them the boost, like this boost, blah blah, it's OP. But how do you really know that it's OP? I mean, you have never seen it in a competitive match yet, so you don't really know how OP it is. So I mean, I don't know if they would take me as just trying to defend something, or I don't know. I don't think that it would have gotten fixed, because I don't think it's that easy to see if it's OP. But
so in terms of the actual admin decision, okay, the admin decision was that they were just going to replay the whole map. And this is something people got really angry about, because to a lot of people who don't know a lot of these facts that we're discussing here, they think it went like this. LDLC are just these great guys who played a totally fair game, and they never pixel boosted, they never did any boosts, did anything. Clearly, they never did a super game-breaking boost. That part's correct. And so they won 12-3, and that was legitimate. They earned that 12-3. But then this evil Fnatic team, they did all these boosts on purpose, and then they won the half. So to most people, they think the fair solution is we should just start at the second half again. It should be 12-3 to LDLC, and let's replay the second half. Now, as you mentioned there, LDLC had their own boost, which technically was an immortal boost as well. They also had a boost that was pixel walking. They had all these factors. Now, technically, it wasn't as game-breaking, and crucially, it didn't win them as many rounds. So I can't remember how many rounds they did it, like 2 or 3 or something. Do you remember how many rounds they did the immortal boost?
No, I don't remember.
It was a couple, though, I think. Okay, so let's say they did it 2 or 3. Now, a lot of people, their other solution was, let's just take these rounds away. Like, let's take a round penalty. So let's say they did it 3 times. So we'll make it 9-3 for the first half, and we'll just start at 9-3. If I'd have really suggested that, for real, would Fnatic have accepted it? Like, we'll start the game, but we'll just play from 9-3 onwards. Would you have accepted that sort of a rematch?
I mean, I think people, we were not really wanting to play anymore at all, because of like how people got treated and all that. Like, some people take it way harder than others, you know.
Okay.
And so I think it wouldn't really matter if from what score we played, and I think people just didn't have the feeling for playing it anymore, pretty much. I think
Let me ask you about that then.
I'm pretty used to it, so but
I mean, listen, the way you're describing it there, like your phrasing makes it sound like it wasn't that. You didn't say like the whole team was like, we don't want to play anymore, it's over, we're done with the tournament. It sounds like maybe there were 1 or 2 people, or half the team, or a certain person was upset. So whatever, you need the whole team to play, obviously. So certain people didn't want to play on anymore. Explain that to me, because the thing that's confusing me about that is I know different people take things different ways, and then they get affected differently. But at least personally, if I was in a scenario, I can't talk about this scenario, but if I'm in a scenario where something's challenging and someone's kind of like, I feel like it's unfair, actually my response is usually the opposite. I like want to like do it just to like prove something, like, oh fuck that, if they say that, then we'll play again, you know what, I'll beat them next time, and then when I beat them I can be like, that was totally unfair what you did, but now I beat you totally legitimately and you can't say shit, you know. Like, I would kind of go the other way on it. So what happened within the team, do you think? Like, were there people in the team trying to get people like, no, we've got to play this match, like it's important? Like, what was the team atmosphere like?
I mean, it was like, let's say it was one player that didn't really care what happens, like if we play or if we don't play. He wanted to play, but it didn't really matter for him. And we had one player that was like, yeah, sure, I mean, we should play, but I think it's fine if people don't want to. And it was like 2 or 3 players that was like, we shouldn't play, because I mean, we obviously didn't win fair, and it would just make more sense if we jumped off. I mean, sure, we could have replayed it, but what if we won? I mean,
yeah, that'd be awesome, right? You'd win, you'd go to the final, you get $100,000, you win the major. It sounds awesome, JW. What's the problem?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, it sounds awesome like that, but if you're adding up the fact that the whole community would like hate you and all that, I mean, to us it wasn't really worth it, because in the end the community is like everything, and the community is the reason we can play this on a professional level and earn money on it and all that. So I mean, we didn't think it was fair in some way, I guess. It's hard to say now, because we was in a certain mindset back then, you know. So I mean, it's hard to describe the feelings and all that, but I think we did the right choice in the end.
So after that match, and LDLC obviously went on and they won the title, I want to ask you some other questions about LDLC as a team, because even though everyone knows, like, JW abuses the fuck out of the CZ, or he did before it got nerfed, they were the team that famously could use it. And people will think I'm exaggerating, but it even almost was the case. Like in the Dreamhack Winter especially, I saw maps where they won, I don't know if they won more, but it felt like they won more CZ saves than they won fucking actual gun rounds on terrorist side. What was their team actually like with the CZ? Why were they just so good?
I mean, I think they were much like us. I think we were a pretty good CZ team as well. Sure, I'm like this CZ figure or CZ icon pretty much, but I think, yeah, I don't know. I think it's because when you have a team with so much skill, like they have 5 really, really good players, and that pistol is, yeah, it's like a rifle, but it is a pistol. So I think that's the reason to it, because they are 5 so skilled players. It's easy for all of them to like play good with a rifle or like an CZ, I guess. I think that's pretty much it, because they have so high skill individually in the team. So that made it easy for them to use the CZ, I guess.
Do you think it takes a certain style though to use it? Because famously NIP, I can almost never think of them winning CZ saves. You know, it feels like they never really were able to do it, or they just didn't. Maybe the style of the players didn't fit. Why do you think a team like that couldn't just abuse it as well?
I don't think really. I mean, I don't know really. Like maybe that they don't have, like, all 5 have the same mindset or so. Like, I mean, you can either have the mindset like we all 5 go aggressive, or we all 5 play defensive. Maybe they had like 1 player being aggressive and 2 defensive and 2 like floating around, I guess. Something like that, maybe, I don't know. But I think that you should be, all 5 should be on the same page when you use it, and do it in a force buy, I guess. Like either all 5 defensive or pretty much all 5 aggressive. When
you mentioned there that NIP, when you'd played Hellraisers, you were thinking like, wow, they could go to the final, like they're really scary right now. And like you said, NIP just crushed them basically, and then NIP beat Virtus Pro, and then NIP went to the final. Now, what people won't remember is that when I was doing the analysis desk, Fiflarin was there doing analysis as well, okay? And Fiflarin picked NIP to lose to Hellraisers, then he picked them to lose to Virtus Pro, then he picked them to lose to LDLC. So Fiflarin himself thought, and he didn't know they'd be as good as they were by the end of the tournament, you know. From talking to other players before the tournament, I know a lot of players who were saying stuff like, yeah, they're all right in practice, but, you know, like, I think they might lose in the semi-final, or, you know, if they got the really bad round of 8 matchup, like, obviously they played LDLC or FNATIC, then they might lose even then. Before the tournament, before you saw them go to the final, what actual level did you think NIP was at? Were they way worse in practice than they were by the time they got to the final of Dreamhack Winter?
I thought, like, I think maybe they should of course get out of the groups, I think, and I think I would like predict them to go out like in quarters or something, based on how they played when we played them. But yeah, they showed up and played amazing, I guess, even though they could have lost to ESC in the group stage, I think.
Yeah,
I think that was pretty close game. And yeah, wasn't Virtus Pro almost beating them as well, like on Nuke? And
yeah, it was like 15-8 or something.
Yeah, and then they lost Nuke or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it felt like the old NIP in a bit, like they somehow grinded out rounds, and even though they shouldn't have won, they still won. Like stuff like that. I think it felt in a way like the old NIP.
Because one thing that was really shocking in this tournament was that they beat 3 teams on Inferno who were all supposedly really good. Like Hellraisers had obviously destroyed Cloud9 in Inferno, and they've always been good on that map. And NIP crushed them. And then, well, Forest crushed them. And then in the semi-final, they utterly destroyed Virtus.pro in the decide, even though Virtus.pro is quite famous for their Inferno. And then in the final, they even smashed LDLC something like 16-4 in Inferno, even though, like, LDLC is one of the best Inferno teams in the world. Was their Inferno ever good when you played them with this new lineup, or when you saw them play it before? Was it actually a good map for them? Like, do you think they knew that it was their best map?
I think we never played them with a new lineup on Inferno, but I remember when we were, yeah, in my opinion, one of the best Inferno teams, maybe the best one. I remember we lost to them in the Face It Online League on Inferno, when they, yeah, I don't know, they adapted very, very good to what we do. Like, they didn't let us get any entry kills easy and stuff like that. I mean, I think they have always had a pretty decent Inferno, or a pretty good one. And now that they changed the player, it was way harder for people to predict how they will play and all stuff like that. I mean, it's always this first 1 or 2 months that is super hard to play against a team that has changed player, because you don't know where he will play, how will they play, what positions and all that. So I mean, the first 1 or 2 months, I would say, is probably always the best, or should be the best for a new team. But yeah, I don't know. I think it was a combination of NIP having a good Inferno from before, and now that people had problems knowing what they will do and what they will do in the rounds, I think.
So NIP had this amazing run. They go to the final, and so every NIP fan now wants to be like, well, they almost won. They were like match point for the whole series, and you know, they beat Virtus.pro, and they almost beat LDLC. Like, they could be the best team in the world. Like, they could be top 2, top 3. If you had to guess, if I had to, like, if you have to be the prophet now, in the next 2 or 3 tournaments, can NIP really become the best team in the world? Can they win the next 2 or 3 tournaments? Will the form continue? Do you think, was Dreamhack Winter the highest they're going to go for now, and they're going to drop down a bit? What's your sense for them as a team, do you think?
I think they're going to drop down a bit. I don't know how much, and they might prove me wrong, of course, but I think, yeah, around maybe semis, if they had like good opponents for them, I think, like good matchups. I think that's what I think, at least.
So okay, you guys bounced back. You went to ESL, and even though you lost to Virtus.pro, that seems like a joke now, because then you won 4-0 in the final. Like, you just smashed them completely. If you look back now, is FNATIC now? Should we pretend Dreamhack Winter didn't happen? Are you back at the level? Are you the best team again? Are you the best team at CS? Are you going to dominate all these events coming forwards?
I mean, I hope so, obviously, but I think the ECA win was very, very important for us, like the whole team, the players and all that. I mean, it was super important that we won this, I think. And I think, at least in our minds, we will just try to forget about Dreamhack Winter, even if it will be tough. But yeah, I hope we can keep dominating, but I really think that we can keep our level, at least. The voice cracks. But yeah, I think we can keep our level.
So the match I want to see is, I want to see LDLC versus FNATIC. I want to see a best of 3 or a best of 5, whatever it is. I want to see them play again. If FNATIC's still really good, you still won ESEA. If LDLC won Dreamhack Winter, next time you two meet, technically, they've still technically haven't beaten you, JW. They technically won by forfeit. They never got to 16 rounds. Technically, you won that game, but then it was the boosters illegal, all the rest of it. Next time you play them, you're still going to beat them. Will it be like the old days? Will they be as good as they were at Dreamhack Winter? What do you think of LDLC at the moment? I mean, the CZ's been nerfed, remember? So you're going to be worse, they're going to be worse. No, I'm joking, obviously. What do you think of them overall?
I mean, it's hard to predict a team that has won a major, because when you win a major, I think you start to relax a bit. I mean, I don't know how to say really, but yeah, I mean, for example, when we won the major, we started to relax and like think way higher of ourselves than we should do, and that might have been the case with an IP as well. I don't know. Sure, they shouldn't have won ESL One, but they started to go spiral down a lot after that. So I don't know if that winning that major title is a curse, or I don't know. But I think, yeah, I hope that we will still have the upper hand against them, of course. But I mean, they will be very tough to play, and I hope they don't start being relaxed or anything because they won a major. But yeah, I think it will be good matchups for sure. And now that there is some, yeah, people might say it will be grudge matches or whatever. I mean, I think it will be interesting matchups.
So one of the topics we addressed before, one of the reasons why there was all this kind of bad blood in the community about FNATIC was all these cheating accusations. Because after Kaylee and SF got banned, everyone started making all these clips about Flasher and actually other players in the team as well. And people started looking for, like, are people cheating? What's going on here? The problem with this scenario is there's no way to prove someone isn't doing something. Like, I don't know how you could do that ever. There'll always be some way someone could say, but you could have done this way, that way. There'll always be something they could come up with. Ignoring whether or not someone did or didn't, or how we would prove it, when you initially found this stuff out, like, people, it's not a joke. People aren't just joking that they think someone cheats. They really think someone cheats, and then even pro players are saying it. You're saying initially at Dreamhack Winter, it wasn't like the reason your team was playing worse or anything. Over time, has it gotten to the team? Like, after Dreamhack Winter, did those cheating accusations affect the team in any way?
No, not really. I mean, Flasha, for example, who is very accused, or was very accused, I don't know how it is these days. I guess he's still accused, but I mean, he doesn't really care about it. I mean, he's a guy that doesn't really care at all what others thinks. I mean, sure, it's a bit sad that the whole community thinks he's cheating, but he's the player that I know it will get to the least, if you get what I mean. If they maybe jumped on another player, like me, for example, maybe it would have affected me more. So in one way, I guess it's good that it was Flasha that got all these accusations, because it doesn't affect him at all. But yeah, I think it's a bit sad that pro players like out people on Twitter and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you remember that clip when I got cheating accusations against ESC? I went on to LAN and pro myself, but how do you do that these days? Because people just say that you can cheat on LAN and all that. So I mean, it's not a good sign for the future, I guess, because how do you prove yourself these days? Do
you have a sense then for how, because like, for example, ESEA was actually a good example, because everyone claimed that like, but ESEA's got the really good anti-cheat, and they helped with like SNMN and all that crap. Like, they'll catch anyone who's a cheater. But obviously you went to ESEA and you won that LAN as well. So do you get a sense, like, if you play, let's say you play 3 more LANs, or that you play for the next 4 months with the same lineup, and you win and you do have good results, and Flasher plays well and everyone plays well, will it just eventually be forgotten about? Do you think pro players will just shut up eventually, or do you think some people will keep it going? Like, do you think there'll be other pro players who will still believe it?
I mean, I think there is still some pro players that might believe it, but I think people will not like say it loudly on Twitter and stuff anymore, because they like, I mean, now I think I read on Twitter that it has been like one of the biggest VAC waves or something on Christmas Eve or something, I think. I mean, nobody of us is getting banned, so people should realize that we are not cheating. And I think by pro players will probably like for not to really forget about it, but it will go away from them after a few events, I think. But I don't know about the community. But yeah, I don't know really what to do. As you said, it's super hard to prove that you are not cheating, especially now that everybody thinks you can cheat on LAN and have every kind of cheat on LAN. So I don't know really, but I hope it will disappear, because it's not good for the scene and it's not good for anyone.
So there's a problem question I have here, which is tricky. I'm not even sure what the answer is. Back in the day, okay, when we used to play Quake, like even 10 years, 15 years ago, when we used to play Quake, sometimes we didn't have really good anti-cheat. In fact, sometimes we never had anti-cheat. But one of the ways we could get cheaters is actually we would just get some of the best players and we'd show them the demo, okay? And some of them, because they were so good, like especially like with like the railgun, for example, players who had really godlike railgun aim could kind of tell something that maybe I wouldn't be as good at. Like they could say like, oh, see this shot here? Like the way he moved, like the way quickly it moved like that, a normal aim wouldn't do that, you know. Like look at elsewhere in the demo, he moves smooth, or, you know, they'd be able to pick out what would seem suspicious, okay? And so I didn't think they were 100% right, but there was like a logic behind it. Like I could understand that if they could do the best shots possible, they would have a sense for what is cheating and what seems unlikely, okay? So I would have said in CSGO, you should be a perfect candidate for this, because your style anyway is it's like, it looks, if you weren't cheating, people would always have said you were cheating like they had in the past, okay? Because your style is like holding the AWP angle like super close to the wall, so there's no angle even, and you shoot them as soon as they come out, and really aggressive pushing behind a wall where if they happen to be there, it would look like you were wall hacking, even if you aren't, you know? So I would have thought if there were cheaters, JW would at least have a suspicion that someone's cheating. But, I mean, I don't think I'm betraying any confidence when I say this here. When all the cheating happened, I asked you for these reasons. I said, like, do you think anyone does cheat in the pro scene? Like, not your team, whatever, but is there like another top player who cheats? Like, do you think anyone in the top 10 teams, I think is what I said, like, is it possible anyone cheats? And you actually said, like, you didn't think it was the case, right? That's what you think? No one cheats in any of the top 10 teams.
No, I really don't think so. I mean, people are basing the facts on like some guy that is claiming to be a coder, or some guy that got banned for cheating. I mean, those guys says that it's like 16 top players that are cheating, and I really think that's bullshit, because that means every top 10 team have at least one cheater or something, and that's not accurate at all. I really don't think it is. I think there isn't any pro player at the moment cheating, I'm pretty sure, and like people just assume that Cooley, for example, have been cheating on LANs and stuff. We don't even know that. So I mean, if not Valve is, I mean, I understand why Valve doesn't do that, but if not Valve is coming out and saying like he cheated at this point and this point, we will never know. And yeah, I don't know, it's pretty bad, because then people will never know if you can cheat on LAN or not, actually. So, but yeah, I mean, back when I got cheat accusations again, if I went out and said like, this guy cheats as well or something, I mean, that people would just laugh at me and just tell me to shut up. But now people actually believe this SMN guy that is claiming that a lot of pros is cheating for some reason. I don't know. I have never talked to this guy. I don't know him or anything. But for some reason he's outing me and a lot of other pros. So I don't know really. But I don't know why we all trust these guys.
I've got a question about you personally then. So as I kind of referenced earlier, it's actually something I noticed in CSGO once you became like, good on LAN especially. So like at that point, in theory, once you're really good on LAN and your team's winning, at that point, there's no real reason that any other pro player can be like, he sucks. Because obviously you don't. You're winning and you're beating them. But I've noticed in history, there's certain styles of players where actually people just don't like them. They either don't like them personally or they don't like the style of play. Like if the style of play is annoying. So a great example, actually, believe it or not, in history is GetRight. When GetRight first developed that style that he has now of being like the lurker, well, that used to really piss people off because he was so good at it. Like he'd always be the guy coming from behind, and so that people would always feel like, we would have won that round if he hadn't just got lucky and like peeked me when I looked away, or like how did he know to wait there? Like, that's such bullshit. And so as a result, it wasn't until he really did just beat them like a million times and perform so high level, like, they couldn't deny it anymore. Do you have some sort of sense that it's like that for you? Like have the reactions of other pro players changed now that you're winning everything and you're beating all these players?
Yeah, I think so, actually. Like, what you say makes sense, and I think now that you say it, I think I have experienced it a bit myself. Like, players are not really accepting, but they are, yeah, talking to you about your skill on a whole different level, I guess, and actually understands that it's something new and something good and not just bullshit, I guess. So yeah, I think what you says makes perfect sense.
When you were saying before, if you'd have gotten cheat accused, like maybe it would have affected you, I actually wonder if that's true though, because on this topic that we're talking about here, if since the beginning of CSGO, even famous pros were saying like you're saying the Golden Five guys were like, hey, he cheats, like he's obviously cheating versus us, and then later on people would be like, oh, JW's just the most bullshit online player ever, like, oh, online we would beat him, you know, he'd never do those crazy shots versus us. It feels like that doesn't really get to you though. It feels like you're the guy where like you don't care, like you or maybe that motivates you or something. What is your personality like in this sense? I mean, I got the sense that you weren't the guy who was like, yeah, let's just quit Dreamhack Winter. I think you wanted to play. You don't have to answer that, but I get the sense from how you answered that you wanted to play.
Well, I don't know. I mean, in the beginning, I was affected a lot, I guess, but I mean, now I'm just used to being called different stuffs and being called out for being a cheater online or whatever. I mean, sadly, I'm just used to it now, so I mean, I don't care now, but before, I think I would have cared a lot more, but I don't know. And yeah, about the other stuff, I think I was more of the guy that was like, for example, I don't want to continue without this guy or this guy, or something like that. I was more of that guy, I guess.
So, I've got a question for you, a general question now. So think about your whole career. For whenever you talk to like different pros in different games, usually they'll have a different answer to the question of like who the hardest guy to play against is. So for example, back in 1.6, some people actually who were top pros didn't used to say Forrest was the best. Like maybe for them, Neo was the hardest to play against. His style just, it was so hard for their team. Meanwhile, for another player, maybe Forrest was the hardest. Like for SK, he always used to kill them always famously. So is there a player in CSGO who stands out like that? Like this one guy, somehow he's just, for JW at least, he's the most annoying to play against, or is the hardest, or something about him is it's a level above the others. Is there someone who stands out?
Hard one, actually. I mean, the obvious one that comes to my mind is KRiMZ, of course. But I'm not sure if there's someone else, actually.
KRiMZ is one of the reasons, you know, why I always do I try to bring fanboys who say JW has the best AWP back down to earth, because I always tell them, listen, JW can have rounds and halves where he looks awesome with the AWP, but I've seen a lot of games where JW is playing versus KRiMZ, and JW buys the AWP and KRiMZ buys the AWP, and they both go to the AWP spots where the AWP see each other, and KRiMZ kills JW the first couple of times, and JW, in his mind, I'm obviously not in your mind, but this is how I imagine it goes, he goes like, yeah, maybe I won't AWP for the rest of this game actually, I think I'm just going to rifle now, I think I won't peek that corner anymore. It feels like that, it feels like he gets to you a bit like that.
I mean, I have always been a very like emotional player, I think you can say. So sure, it is a bit like that, but in one way I also think it's good for everyone that there is actually people claiming that I am the best, and there is a lot of people claiming he's the best. I mean, it would be pretty boring if everybody would have the same like star and the same idol and all that. So I mean, in my world it's good that people like different players and all that, because it makes everything much more fun for everyone involved, in my opinion. I mean, it would be pretty boring for everybody if let's say 100% of the scene only liked to get right and only thought he was the star and all that, you know. So I mean, to me it's good that people have different stars and different idols in esports as well as in general sports, of course. So But
So
yeah,
then,
I mean,
aside from just Kenny S, because he's like an obvious one that does stand out, because like I say, matching up against you, is there another name, maybe not as much, but just this guy, something about his style is annoying or it's hard to play?
I think I remember Scream back when he was super on fire. He was he was super hard to play against when he had this good period with his one tap style. Back then that was very hard to play against actually. But now, since you haven't played him that much, since he's in Epsilon now, I think
Sure.
you forget about him a bit. But yeah, his aim, more his aim than his playstyle was very annoying to play against as well. So yeah, I don't know. KNS is the obvious one, but maybe Scream a bit as well.
Okay, if I had to, just as a final question, you have to make me JW's dream team, but the rule is no one in current Fnatic can be in the lineup. So it's all the other players in the world, and all we're gonna do. It doesn't have to be a real team. Like obviously, if fucking Guardian's on the team, he's not going to be very good at communicating with like a Danish guy and then a guy from America, whatever. But who would be the 5 players you'd put in this dream team if it was non-Fnatic players? Who are the ones you like? What you like their style or something about their skills?
The first one that I think is obvious is Pasha.
Okay, why?
To me, he's I think he's an awesome guy, and I think he will be very good in a team. And I mean, now he isn't playing up to that level, but I mean, at Catwitch, for example, he was playing amazing, and I think he still does sometimes, but he's a bit inconsistent maybe. Okay. But he has this, I think, a bit like me, this annoying play style. He goes through smokes and stuff like that. And so yeah, I think I would want Pasha in my team, and then Forest, because he has this, I think he has this kind of unique aim, especially when he's on fire. I think his peak is, he has the best peaks out of all players, I think. So I would have Pasha, Forest. And then for calling, I would take Existence actually, because I have always admired him for how dedicated and passionate he is for the game, and he seemed like a super hardworking guy, and in my opinion, he isn't too bad actually. So if I had to pick a caller, I would probably go for him.
Okay.
So now I need one last player, right?
Two.
Yes, Pasha, Forest, Existence.
Oh, you're going to play in the team?
Oh, I thought that was
we can do that then. Okay, you're in the team as well. Yeah. Who's the 5th guy then? Who's our last man?
Okay, and then who to pick? I guess, I mean, I am the entry fragger now, I guess. I mean, if I would swap me out, I guess Freiberg would take my spot as like entry fragger.
Okay.
Because Freiberg is like probably one of the best entry fraggers in my opinion, at least right now. But since I am in the team, I guess I am the entry fragger instead. So yeah, maybe Get Right, because he's Get Right. You know what Get Right can do in games, So yeah, I think me, Pasha, Existence, Get Right, and Forest.
Okay, fair enough.
Something like that.
Sounds pretty good team. Do you have a final message for anyone who watched this interview? Like you can add, like maybe someone you want to thank or say hello to, or just some final statement for anyone who got to the end of this interview and they've listened to all of JW's thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, thank you to everyone that keeps believing in us and keeps believing in me and keeps supporting us, even though it's tough times, of course. And yeah, I hope everyone have a happy new year, and even all the haters and everybody. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Tack så mycket.
Tack så mycket.